Or like the
That sounds good.
okay, text we were looking at. We can get some example sentences now, which will be, I think, a little simpler vocab, and simpler
Okay.
structure. Still, maybe I'll do one or two lines of this.
Le café.
Do you want to try to pronounce this word for juice on the screen once it shows up? With your knowledge of French?
Le jus,
Pretty good.
or possibly le jus.
Yeah. The le is going to have the schwa.
Le jus.
Jus.
Le jus.
There are words where the S is kept in the sound, but this isn't really one of them.
Oh. Why does the S stay? It's not one of the consonants in the word careful.
It is indeed not. So here's a case I know of where that happened. Oh, I've got to get my Twitch open. Here's one. Prospectus. I'll let you guess why it might stay. What do you think?
Because it's a later borrowing from Latin.
That's my suspicion about that too. That's probably the reason. You might have things from English too that do it, although I don't know. Don't know if any of you. Okay, so I'm turning the page now. You ready to... You have your special characters ready to hand?
Yes, I do.
All right. So, an example of Aussagesatz. Er fährt nach München.
Un jus d'orange.
Aussagesatz, what?
Er fährt nach München.
Le serveur.
A nice simple one here. Fair. Which I have forgotten the R. No.
Le serveur est américain.
München. Okay.
Aussagesatz. Er fährt nach München. Well, that's really two separate things. But the spelling is correct. Sie hat mit ihm telefoniert.
Je voudrais 2 croissants.
Something telefoniert.
Sie hat mit ihm telefoniert.
Ihm.
2 cafés. La serveuse est française.
Something got left out there. I only see ihm telefoniert.
Uh-oh.
Do you want me to repeat?
Yeah, I guess your audio is a little flippy, so I probably just missed the first word.
Sie hat mit ihm telefoniert.
Mit.
Sie hat mit ihm telefoniert. There's more than that. Sie hat mit ihm telefoniert.
Sie hat mit ihm telefoniert. Got it.
All right, I'm gonna hook up the microphone. These are
Okay.
these are complete sentences that I'm dictating. So if you don't get one coming through, let me know and I'll repeat.
Okay. Yes, these sentences are easier than the sentences of guess down.
Gestern. Gestern.
Did I say it wrong?
Yeah, you said
Guess
gestern.
down?
It's not gestern. Okay, what do we see so far grammatically though in these two?
They're Aussagesatz.
Okay, where's the verby stuff?
In the first one, it's just in normal second position, and then in the second one, hot is in the second position, and telefoniert is at the end.
Okay, here's the third one. Müller fliegt morgen ab. Müller fliegt morgen ab.
Thé. Je voudrais un thé. La serveuse est américaine. Serveuse est américaine.
Okay.
Müller fliegt morgen ab.
Please say it again.
Müller fliegt
Müller.
morgen
Okay.
ab.
Okay.
Le serveur est américain.
2. Café.
Morgen up.
Okay, what's it mean?
Let's see. So fliegen is to fly, but I don't know about abfliegen. Usually it changes the meaning when it takes a prefix like that.
Wouldn't call it a prefix. Because look at the position of it.
Is it not? It's not from the verb abfliegen?
Look at the position of it in the sentence.
It's at the end.
Wouldn't call it a prefix, therefore.
Okay, but when it is abfliegen, it's a prefix, so it just goes off of the verb.
Or is it the other way around?
Well, I don't know. I learned those as separable prefix verbs. That's what I've always known to call them. So
Uh-huh.
I assumed that it's a prefix that got taken off.
What might argue in favor of another analysis?
Uh,
Le vin, une tasse.
I don't know.
Well, there's the fact that when we say abfliegen as an infinitive is not a verb.
Okay.
Whereas when it's a verb, they're separate words.
La bière.
Make sense?
Yes.
What's the participle here? The past passive one.
And when it goes in when it's like past tense or something, it goes outside of the morphology. So you get like, it would be abgeflogen.
Mm-hmm. That's not a past tense, though, because that's also not a verb. What is that?
It's a past participle, isn't it?
It is a participle, and a participle is not a verb. It's also not a past tense. What would be the past tense? The preterite.
Le verre.
I don't know,
Un verre de vin.
or something.
Er flog ab. Good. Next one is Du musst die Arbeit erledigen. Du musst die Arbeit erledigen.
Erledigen.
Erledigen. Erledigen. Du musst die Arbeit erledigen.
Je voudrais une bière. Je voudrais une bière.
D'eau.
Close. There's no H in it. Erledigen. To take care of.
Okay.
Please put it in your notes.
Okay.
What's it mean?
Oh. I don't know.
Did you hear me when I just told you what the verb means?
I did not.
I see. It means take care of.
Okay. Erledigen. Okay.
So, what does the sentence mean?
You
D'eau.
must take care of the work.
Good.
D'eau.
Next one is Das Haus wird nächstes Jahr gebaut. Das Haus wird nächstes Jahr gebaut.
Une tasse de thé.
Need something about.
Das Haus wird nächstes Jahr gebaut. Das.
Okay.
Je voudrais un verre de vin.
Are you wearing a headset or what's your setup for listening?
I have my headphones plugged into my computer.
Je voudrais un verre de vin.
Je voudrais un verre d'eau.
Une bière, s'il vous plaît.
Une bière, s'il vous plaît. Das Haus wird nächstes Jahr gebaut. Good. What's it mean?
A house will be built next year.
So let's look at the last two. Tell me about the position of the verbal parts.
Okay. In both cases, we have our conjugated verb form in second position, and these apparently not verb forms of verbs at the end.
What about fliegt morgen ab?
Fliegt is in second position.
Okay. And what kind of a thing is up?
I guess it'd be some sort of article that goes at the end.
Yeah. Did we translate that one? Are we clear on the meaning? It means he's flying away tomorrow.
Okay.
Departing by plane. Right. I mean, in English, do you feel that participles and infinitives are verbs, or are they something other than verbs?
Well, I
Tu
think
veux un verre
maybe they're not
d'eau.
the most verby thing, but I would definitely still put them in that category rather than something else like adjective. Maybe you could argue participles are adjectives, maybe, but if they're not verbs, what else would they be?
Right. Take a look at this. He likes swims.
Okay.
He likes animals. What's wrong with the first one there?
He likes the first one is ungrammatical, so
What's wrong with
I
it?
would say it's not a noun. He likes swims.
What's not a noun?
Okay, I see. Okay, I get it. It
Good.
first came across as ungrammatical, but yeah, I just figured it out.
No,
As a sentence, it's fine,
I mean it as an ungrammatical sentence. He likes swims.
Oh, okay.
Not taking it as plural. What's wrong? Swims being a verb. Here's another one. Perhaps to make it clear. What's wrong with this? He likes swam.
Right, so only one verb within the sentence can bear morphology at a time.
Disagree with that. Here's an example.
Okay.
He likes animals and drinks
Yes,
water. That has two verbs in it.
Okay. Let me slightly amend my sentence. Only one
Une tasse de
verb
thé.
per core kernel sentence can. Okay, so you're claiming that when something is a non-finite verb, that it's really a noun, or what do you think it is? These participles and things like that.
Okay, if we take in the first one that I put in there, swims, I mean the verb form swims and not a plural noun.
Right.
So he likes swims, that sounds bad for some reason. He likes swam, also sounds bad. But he likes animals, where animals is a noun. That one sounds perfectly fine to me. What does that tell us about the verb like? What kind of a complement does it want?
It needs a noun complement. Maybe a sentence complement.
Can you give an example of that?
He likes. Oh, well, it can admit infinitives. He likes to run.
It needs a to there. Yes. So, to me, an elegant analysis
to run, I would say, is a infinitive.
Well, no doubt about that. No disagreement on that. But what is an infinitive deep down? Do you know this famous sentence? To err is human, or err. Both readings exist. Have you ever heard that?
I have.
Okay, what do you think of this? Ers is human. Sound good or
Last
bad?
good.
Less good, yeah. Why? What's wrong with it?
Le sandwich.
Sandwich.
La bouteille.
Une bouteille.
Well, of course, this is the verb with the. It looks like it's the noun. Ers shouldn't be a verb, I guess. Okay, I'll believe you.
I
That
don't.
infinitives
My.
are not.
I don't just want you to believe me. I want to show you evidence and help you reason for yourself.
Yes,
It's
I
not.
am having difficulty articulating what's wrong with this, but this is some convincing evidence. So I guess it is the case that
Okay.
uh, infinitives are technically not verbs. But seeing as how, I guess,
Here's another
I've
example.
always thought of them as verbs, so it's difficult to reconceptualize everything
They are
so
verbs
quickly.
in the clothing of a noun or an adjective. Well, the participles are verbal adjectives. Let's think a little bit about those. Here's a bad example. It's a did deal.
Mm-hmm.
Did, I think, can only be a verb. Nothing else. What should it be instead?
But if you use done in that case,
Uh-huh. Now look at its position. We've got a determiner, article, then the word in question, and then a noun. That doesn't seem like a really ideal place to put a verb to me. For it to form a cohesive structure.
oh yes, okay. In Irish, participles are called verbal adjectives, and uh,
Je prends un
gerunds are
sandwich.
called verbal nouns.
Uh-huh. So what about English gerunds? Here's one, I like swimming. Here's another, the swimming girl. What is a gerund?
Yeah. Okay, so in I like swimming, swimming is a noun, and in the swimming girl, it's an adjective.
Good, I agree. It fulfills both functions with the same form. In principle, they're distinguishable. We just have to reason what other class of words could go in that slot. But syntax is such that it requires what am I trying to say? For something to stand as a subject or an object or certain types of complement, it needs to be nouny rather than a true verb. If we have multiple inflected verbs, it's going to cause all kinds of confusion, like he likes swims. We need it to be
Okay.
clearly to have one thing that is the true verb, the highest one in a tree diagram, and nothing else can be like that. There's really only one true inflected verb in a clause. In the case like he likes animals and drinks water, it's two inflected verbs in one sentence, but it's two clauses.
Okay. So
Elle
these
prend une pizza.
words which are acting in nonverbal functions, I believe, are called non-finite verbs. Isn't that true?
Yeah, we saw it we
Uh,
saw the German word
so if they,
yesterday for
yeah,
this. What did we
if
have?
they're called un,
No, it was.
no, not that one. Infinitive
It wasn't
or
that word. We had the form
infinitive. It was like
infini.
infinite.
Yeah, that was the form we saw. Non-finite.
Okay. So why would it be called a non-finite verb if it is not in the class of verb?
Well, mistakes do get made, don't they?
I suppose.
Une bouteille d'eau. Une bouteille de eau.
All right, let's continue with the German, having opened that topic up for some thought. The last one we had, das Haus. Yeah, das Haus wird nächstes Jahr gebaut. The next example, die Brücke droht einzustürzen. Die Brücke droht einzustürzen.
Un croissant ou une orange?
Ou une orange. Hard.
Un croissant ou une orange?
Let me know if you want it repeated again.
Brücke
Hey.
droht
Hey. Marie prend un thé.
einzustücken.
Rends. Rends. Tu prends un thé?
There is no word einstucken. Die Brücke, the rest is correct though.
Einzustücken.
Einzustürzen. Die Brücke droht einzustürzen.
Stützen. Oh.
Uh-huh.
C'est un hôtel.
Not quite. That would be stutzen, but the word is einzustürzen.
Oh, one of those funky R's in there.
Sophie prend une salade et toi? Getting closer, but that would be einstürzen. The verb is, or the non-verb here, the non-finite, is einzustürzen. Einzustürzen.
Einzustürzen. And
There's
what
just the-
can I have wrong
There's
here?
just the one T in it for one, but there's something else more fundamental. Not stürzen, einzustürzen.
I think I had the wrong vowel.
Prends une orange ou un verre de vin, une bière.
It sounds. Could be this one.
Einzustürzen, yes. Do you know this one?
Well, I think is evidenced by me misspelling it 4 times. Probably not. Oh, 3 times.
It means to collapse.
Oh, cool. Let me write that down.
Yeah, so the infinitive will normally not have the zu. It's a special case where it's needed.
Tu prends un sandwich ou une pizza.
What would be the present tense third singular for this? How would we say the bridge is collapsing?
Un thé ou un café.
Hello?
Yes, I'm typing it.
Okay.
Le pain.
Le fromage. Le
I
pain.
think like this.
Well, no, not quite. Try again,
Okay,
please.
I have a second guess. I
Good.
have a backup guess. So we're still good.
I'm going to give you a neat trick to help you decide these cases. That's what it is, right? Listen to where the stress is on the form einzustürzen. Which syllable is most prominent there?
Ein.
Exactly. Whenever that's the case, you're dealing with what you have learned as a separable element. Separable prefix, you called it?
What would you call it?
I don't consider it a
Yeah,
prefix.
that's what we learned about.
Right. I don't consider it a prefix. Because when it's a true verb, it is at the end of the clause. It's a bad place to put a prefix. Also, prefixes generally don't occur as independent words, though of course, across time that kind of thing can happen. I would call it a directional particle.
Okay.
Which in the non-finite forms undergoes this. We have a nice word for it, which I really love: univerbation. Essentially it's its own word, but it will fuse with the participle and the infinitive, and also the gerund. Any non-finite verbal form, a verbal noun or a verbal adjective. So when
that's a good analysis. Let me write that down.
Please do, yeah. Let me know when you're ready for
La
more.
salade. L'addition.
So whenever it's stressed, it's going to be that way. So something like, let me get my German keyboard. German. You might think of über as being basically in the same class as ein. Maybe you're not ready yet.
I'm ready to hear.
Okay. This one is
Übergehen.
übergehen. It's not übergehen, but übergehen. And the inflection will have
Übergehen.
ich übergehe. Übergegangen. That one doesn't übergegangen. That one doesn't tell us much. But because you hear the stress being on the verb syllable, the verb root, that means it's not going to separate. This one is a prefix. Überging, not ging.
Okay.
Über is interesting because if we add another syllable, if we had this one, disregard that last mark there, hinübergehen. That one is basically directional, which will appear to separate. I say appears to separate because I regard it as fundamentally, as I've said a moment ago, it's a separate word that happens to fuse in the non-finite forms. L'addition. Oh, the check. How nice. Not the addition. Okay, you ready for the next example? Oh, let's translate this one first. Die Brücke droht einzustürzen, which adds a level of complexity to Die Brücke stürzt ein.
Elle mange une salade.
That's drohen.
Elle.
Drohen is to threaten. In fact, it's cognate.
Elle mange une salade.
Threatening to collapse.
Exactly.
Mange une salade. Elle mange une salade.
Why do we need to add the to?
Die Brücke droht einstürzen. I don't have an answer ready for that, but it's incomplete that way. Why do we need it? Let me collect some more data on that point. Okay, the next example is, wohin fährst du? Did you get it, or shall I repeat?
Yes, I heard this.
Okay.
Je voudrais un dessert.
My little A umlaut character. Yeah. Nice simple one. Except for one issue I have. I always mix up wohin and woher.
Well, what can you extract from this example? What does it mean?
Dition.
Either where are you traveling from or where are you traveling to?
Yes, to. It means where to.
Wohin, where from?
No, it is not
where
that.
to?
Where to.
Which part is wrong?
Which part of what? I don't see anything wrong, except it should have an initial capital, but there's no nouns in it.
Okay.
Wohin means where to.
Where to? Okay.
Hin is always toward.
Oh, because you would say woher kommst du? So
There
where
you go.
from come you? Got it.
Yeah.
C'est un hôtel.
Okay. I think that one's pretty easy. Next one is, ihr kommt doch mit. Ihr kommt doch mit. C'est un hôtel.
And what was the subject?
Ihr.
La salade. Pain.
I don't know what is wrong with my audio. It keeps
The word is ihr.
dropping out.
Ihr kommt doch mit.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, this is the yaw form. Good. I have it.
And it's got a final question mark.
Oh.
Ihr kommt doch mit. What's it mean as a question?
Are you all coming with?
Roughly, yes. Okay. Lutz hat vielleicht geschnarcht. Lutz hat vielleicht geschnarcht. Lutz hat vielleicht
Schnaz.
Geschnarcht.
Le fromage.
Et pour vous, je prends une salade. Like a waiter. S'il vous plaît. Cheese or dessert? I want cheese and.
Fromage. Ou pain. Je veux fromage et dessert.
Je voudrais un dessert.
Oh, I misspelled vielleicht. Let's get the letters in the right order, please.
Lutz hat vielleicht geschnarcht. I don't know a verb like that. Geschnarcht. Geschnarcht. Cheese or dessert?
Fromage. Ou dessert.
Not quite. It's not an S. Geschnarcht.
Oh. Yes.
Je
I think my
veux
excuse
fromage.
is that I haven't spoken German in many years, so that's probably why my ear is not as
Uh-huh.
perfect as it could be.
Do you know the meaning?
Et dessert.
No.
Lutz really was snoring.
Oh, that makes sense. I think things that start with schna have to do with noses a lot.
With the snout. True enough.
Just like in English.
Indeed, although not schna in English.
Yeah, it's schna.
Alright, there's one more example sentence. It's got, and the first two words are bracketed, but we can disregard that. Er sagt, sie ist im Krankenhaus. Er sagt, sie ist im Krankenhaus.
German characters. That is in Krankenhaus.
Im Krankenhaus.
In.
It really can only be one of those grammatically.
Okay.
Mon père est grand et brun. Il porte souvent des t-shirts blancs et des jeans. Il doit porter des vestes pour aller au travail, mais il n'aime pas ça. Quels vêtements son père préfère-t-il? Des t-shirts. Er sagt, well, it does kind of seem like that, but this is not intended as a direct quote. Sie ist im Krankenhaus, but the words are spelled correctly. We could also have the subjunctive. Er sagt, sie sei im Krankenhaus would also be grammatical.
Okay. Would it be the same words if it were a direct quote?
Yes, it would be a different intonation. Okay, let's now go over the comments below. A word introducing it. Anmerkung. Doppelpunkt. Anmerkung. Ma sœur nage tous les matins. Où est Lucas? Il ne peut pas venir, il travaille le week-end. Oh, c'est dommage, il travaille où? Il travaille à l'usine, loin de la ville. Il travaille.
Bonjour. Je voudrais 2 billets, s'il vous plaît.
There is no
Voilà.
H.
10 euros s'il vous plaît. Le train va arriver dans 15 minutes.
Bonjour. Je voudrais 2 billets, s'il vous plaît.
Voilà. 10 euros s'il vous plaît. Le train va arriver dans 15 minutes.
Bonjour, je voudrais de la soupe de tomates et un verre d'eau, s'il vous plaît. Oh, et je voudrais un peu de pain aussi. Merci.
Je vais au parc. There we go. Anmerkung, but there's another little error with it that I'm going to be really strict about. What else needs to happen? Madame.
Oh, of course.
Parle français.
It ends with which tells us our other mistake.
Good. It's important to listen for these clues. What's the gender going to be? That's right, it's a noun.
Die.
Okay, uneingeleitete Nebensätze sind solche, Komma. I'll just do those four. Uneingeleitete Nebensätze sind solche, Komma. Il fait trop froid. Mon grand-père est anglais. Alice étudie.
Uneingeleitete Nebensätze, what?
Sind solche, Komma. Monsieur Duclerc, chaque été nous voyagez-vous? Est-ce que vous voyagez? Uneingeleitete. Okay, sind. Levi, it's not the word comma, it's the punctuation mark.
Oh.
And there's a compound that you have missed. If it was next to sentences, prepositional phrase, it would need to. Sätze would need to be in a different case. Unless it was dynamic.
Okay.
Uneingeleitete Nebensätze. Also listen to the stress, please. Nebensätze, not Nebensätze. Nebensätze.
Okay.
Uneingeleitete Nebensätze sind solche. Comment? Nebensätze sind solche. There it is. Perfect. Sind solche, bei denen keine Konjunktion oder kein Relativelement steht. Let's just do the next four together. Bei denen keine Konjunktion, bei denen keine Konjunktion, comment tu t'appelles? Bei denen keine Konjunktion. Mes frères. Fatigué. Bei denen keine Konjunktion sounds like a Z, but it is always spelled with a T. In Italian it takes a Z, but German keeps its old Latin spelling. And then let's finish the sentence and translate it. Keine Konjunktion. Oder kein Relativelement steht. Oder kein Relativelement steht. Le magasin.
Le magasin. Les chiens sont petits.
Okay, listen again to the stress. Kein Relativelement.
Petit.
Oh.
You got it?
Yes. Let me fix this.
Le magasin est grand.
Oop, the big is store. Le train est long. Oder kein Relativelement steht. You got it. You want to read back the sentence from Uneingeleitete.
Uneingeleitete Nebensätze.
Les restaurants sont grands.
Solche, bei denen keine Konjunktion oder keine Relativelement steht.
The V will sound voiceless. Even though a vowel follows, it's morpheme final. Relativelement. That makes sense?
Relativelement.
Relativelement. That doesn't quite work. Which I wouldn't have noticed, actually.
So,
thanks for that. Okay.
That means that it's not just a word final devoicing, it's a morpheme final devoicing.
True enough. Or that we just have a word boundary incorporated inside that compound. So, what's the subject here?
Nebensätze.
Good. And what's the verb?
Sind.
Yep, pretty much. Any elements you can't recall or haven't learned before?
Solche, I think, is a familiar word to me, but not one that I ever actively got the meaning of.
So not a familiar word. It means such. It is the cognate.
Okay. I would say familiar in the sense that I have seen it many a time before. And now I know the meaning.
Here's the cognate. It is so like. Qualig. That gives English such and German solch.
Perfect.
I think so. Sind solche. And what else is not familiar?
Le parc est petit.
Le restaurant est petit.
Say again?
Denen. Bei denen keine Konjunktion.
Oh, it's a relative pronoun.
Denen.
Uh-huh. It is dative plural. Relative pronoun.
Oh, wow. It has censored that.
Interesting. But you're able to recover it, right?
Dative plural?
Relative pronoun. So, by which, or something like that, depending on how the by is used.
Le restaurant est petit.
Okay.
Le restaurant est petit.
So maybe we can spend a bit of time making relative clauses. It's a tricky subject, but once you get the mechanics, it can become quite easy and fun.
Un.
Eh.
Un. Le restaurant est grand.
Whenever you're ready, let's try to tackle the meaning of that one, that sentence.
Uneingeleitet.
Let me remind you.
Unintroduced.
Good.
Nebensätze is a kind of sentence.
It is really a subordinate clause. They also use the term Satz for that, but English doesn't.
En. En. Le magasin est petit.
Okay, I'm writing down my notes.
Oh.
Les magasins sont petits.
Les magasins sont petits. Petits.
Okay. So, an unintroduced relative clause
No.
is such.
No.
Or,
It's first of all, it's not singular, and Nebensätze is not a relative. Does not mean relative clause. It means subordinate.
subordinate. Okay.
It's not singular.
Oh, okay.
Sätze.
Unintroduced subordinate clauses are such. By Dana, you just explained. I think that means that the unintroduced relative clauses, or not relative, subordinate clauses, do not have conjunction.
Mhm.
Bei denen keine Konjunktion.
Oder kein Relativelement steht.
Les
Nor
magasins
do
petits.
relative elements stand there.
Let's put it in a good English word order.
Les restaurants
Nor do relative elements
grands.
stand. I think that's also English word.
It's not too convincing to me, but let me jump in and say unintroduced subordinates are those which lack a conjunction and a relative pronoun.
Okay.
I'm going to reword it somewhat to make it a little better sounding for English. You could be more close with in which there are none, but I just like to use lack there instead. And so for that last one, sagt, sie ist im Krankenhaus. We could have das, sagt das, that would change the word order. How would it go if we so do you know the example I'm talking about with the hospital? If we started it with these words, how would it continue?
sagt das. And you said there is a comma after das, but we're
No,
not allowed
never,
to put one before.
never after.
No.
Levi, never after, but before. Always before.
Okay. Okay. Oh, and then that changes the order. Look at that. Die im Krankenhaus ist.
That's exactly right. So this is a different type of Nebensatz. Ein uneingeleiteter Nebensatz. Okay, and this text also gives examples of those word classes. Konjunktion, it's got das, weil. It's double S, das. And for Relativelement, der, welcher. Those are the examples. So feel free to make a note of those. Das, weil, der, welcher. Let me know when you're ready to hear the next sentence.
Okay.
All right. In allen Fällen
La gare est petite.
In allen Fällen also, let me read through the whole sentence once, it's a little bit long. In allen Fällen also besetzt das finite Verb die zweite Stelle auf dem Satzfeld. In allen Fällen also, what'd you say?
In allen Fällen.
Also, in allen Fällen also,
Les écoles françaises.
Les universités. Les filles sont petites.
good. What's the case? Oh, there's one mistake there. It should, allen,
One mistake.
there is a mistake. What does im mean?
Let's see. So this is plural.
Les toilettes sont petites.
Les toilettes sont petites.
But
Les voitures sont grandes.
Außer bei Nachtzeit von zu. Okay, so in is going to be one of those that can optionally take accusative or dative, depending on whether or not there's movement. But since it has im, that tells me it must be dative.
Unless it's a mistake.
Yes, that could be the mistake.
Allen Fällen, that part is correct.
Okay, so that is the mistake. So it should be in den allen.
No, that is not
Fällen.
grammatical. But tell me, what is this word a fusion of?
In dem.
Right, and so that clashes with allen. We can't have dem and allen together. They compete for the same slot.
Okay.
Just like in English, the all.
Okay.
We can't say the all of them. We could say the all-knowing, where the all is part of a compound.
Okay, so allen goes where? So it just is in allen.
That's right. In allen Fällen also. Now you got it. Besetzt das finite Verb. Besetzt das finite Verb.
Das finite verb.
La maison est grande.
And that doesn't sound like a compound, I don't think.
No compounds there in that stretch. Besetzt das finite Verb. Good. Besetzt das finite Verb die zweite Stelle auf dem Satzfeld. Die zweite Stelle auf dem Satzfeld.
Zweite Stelle.
Les écoles sont grandes.
Auf is the
Les.
next word?
No, auf dem Satzfeld. Auf. In allen Fällen also besetzt das finite Verb die zweite Stelle auf dem Satzfeld.
Les écoles sont grandes. Sont grandes.
Lésé. Lésé.
Auf dem Satzfeld. Bingo. That's it. Can you read back the whole sentence from in allen?
In allen Fällen also besetzt das Vernitive-Verb die zweite Stelle auf dem Satzfeld.
Good. The accent is in the right place in all cases. One thing that'll help you sound a little even more native-like is to reduce the letter E in a weak syllable. It's going to be allen Fällen, where the consonant
Allen Fällen.
in allen Fällen also.
In allen Fällen also.
Good. Besetzt das Vernitive-Verb. So what does it mean? What's the subject?
Let's see. Das Vernitive-Verb.
Gut. And what's the verb?
Besetzt.
And what's the object of the verb?
The complement.
It has an object. It's a transitive verb. It takes a direct object.
Les universités sont grandes.
Die zweite Stelle.
Genau. And auf dem Satzfeld really belongs with that one too, but we're just looking at the core parts, so that's correct. So, any words you're not familiar with? Or can you give it a go to translate the whole thing? Les universités sont grandes.
Au. Ou.
In all cases, there is, in all cases, the finite verb is in the second place of the sentence field.
Yeah. Right. That's it. That's the idea. We can get a little closer to besetzen if we also use a transitive verb. What's a transitive verb of English that means to take up a position or something?
Occupy.
Yeah, something like that. Exactly right. For also, we could say therefore. Therefore, in all cases, the finite verb occupies the second position in the domain of the sentence.
Oh, domain. Okay.
Something like that. Not terribly close, but it gets the idea of it. The territory. Something like that. We have one more sentence for this section, and then an example following. Das gilt auch, I'm going to read the whole thing once. Das gilt auch für die Inversion, also die Umkehrung der Abfolge. Das gilt auch für die Inversion. Das gilt auch für die Inversion.
So.
Au.
Das gilt auch für die Inversion. Perfekt. Komma, also die Umkehrung der Abfolge. Also die Umkehrung der Abfolge.
Au. Au.
Can you say it again?
Also die Umkehrung der Abfolge. Also die Umkehrung der Abfolge.
Kalt.
Die Ente ist müde. Ist das Pferd müde?
Ist das Pferd müde?
Ist der Mann jung? Er ist schwer.
Also die Umkehrung, die Abfolge, doesn't quite work. Also die Umkehrung der Abfolge. And listen to the stress. Der Abfolge. Die Umkehrung der Abfolge.
Die Kuh ist schwer.
Also die Umkehrung der Abfolge. Good. Which words are you not familiar with here? Das gilt auch für die Inversion, also die Umkehrung der Abfolge.
Umkehrung, I guess.
It's very nice. It's the German calque of the Latin word invasion. Kehren can mean to sweep, but the basic meaning is to turn. Umkehren,
And
turn
then
around.
Abfolge, we saw to folge is follow.
Well, the verb means follow.
Ab,
We saw the noun earlier, though.
oh, Abfolge.
What does Folge mean? It's related. It's not the same meaning here. Folge meant consequence, last time we saw it. Abfolge means sequence.
Abfolge is sequence.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Die Kuh ist schwer. Die
So,
Kuh ist
therefore,
schwer.
the inversion of the sequence.
The whole sentence starts with Das gilt auch. That's not a complete sentence otherwise. There's no verb in it.
Ist das
What
richtig?
is gilt?
Ah, okay. Let me tell you the infinitive. Tell me if you don't know that either.
Gelten. I don't know. To cover with gold.
Good guess. To be valid.
Okay. Okay. So it is valid also for the inversion.
Good.
Therefore,
Yeah,
the
here it doesn't really mean
inversion.
therefore. It's just
Okay.
recasting. We could say something like in other words or meaning or something like that.
Ist der
Okay.
Käse alt?
It is valid also for the inversion. In other words, the inversion of the sequence.
That's right. We might not repeat the word if we were going to publish this translation, but that's right. Okay, the example that's given has a little derivation. The starting point is fährt nach München. That was the very first one that we started with today.
Fährt nach München, yeah.
So let's invert that. How else could it be worded?
Ist die Frau alt?
And here comes a Duolingo reply, or speaking. Ist die Frau alt? Just ignore that.
Der Tee ist kalt.
Fährt nach. You could say nach München fährt.
That violates a very important rule. Where does the inflected verb go? In what position in the sentence?
The second.
Uh-huh. And if you say nach München fährt, then that violates it.
Okay, but if it had if it was in a subordinate clause, it could do that.
It could do what? Can you give me an example?
Right?
I don't follow you. It doesn't sound correct, no.
If you had a subordinate clause.
Such as?
Das ist richtig.
Ich sage, dass nach München fährt.
Okay. Right.
Then it would go at the end.
It would go at the end. But what is another word order from the starting point, fährt nach München? There's one other one available.
You could flip it and make the question. Fährt nach München?
That hasn't flipped anything. No, we're keeping it
I'm
as
sorry?
that hasn't flipped anything. That's the very same word order. Das ist richtig.
Okay.
What's the other word order that we could get without turning it into a question? There's another.
Nach München fährt er.
There it is. That's the one. Nach München fährt er. If you're doing that, then you're emphasizing the destination. And you get a bit more stress on it. Nach München fährt er, and you could weaken the preposition, the pronoun, I mean.
I'm pretty sure that one is not permitted in English. That's a German exclusive.
Well, there might be some archaic things where you could have a word order like that. Also, anytime you're quoting someone, you can have the verb in second position. Good morning, said the man. All right, we're about at 1 hour. I think I'm going to finish up this German one. Let's do an Esperanto after that and call it a night.
Ist es richtig?
But do take a look back over what the German that we dictated today, and let me know if you have any more questions before we end it.
Bist du jung?
Okay.
Bist du jung?
Bist du müde?
Ist das Kind jung?
Ist das Kind jung?
Ist der Hund alt? Es ist
Okay, I
schwer.
guess I do have one more general question.
Okay.
Based on what you've seen tonight and yesterday, what would you diagnose like my level of German at?
Meaning what?
Like compared to how you expected, or what my competency is, if you think it's good, if it's needs a lot of work, would you
Well, I could see room to improve. I think I want us to get to a point where the little things like im in the wrong place, im allen Fällen, those ungrammatical clauses where they just instantly pop out at you. I'd like to train those points because that's the core stuff. Are there any places where the case is not clear? Oh, there was one I wanted to ask specifically. Die Umkehrung der Abfolge. What is the case of those two nouns?
which part?
The very last bit that was dictated. Die Umkehrung der Abfolge.
Would der Abfolge is obviously genitive.
Case and gender and number, please.
Genitive feminine singular.
Okay, and how about die Umkehrung?
Well, it would be singular, and that means that it is feminine, either accusative or nominative.
So in a sentence, it has to be clearly one and not any other case. Let's see.
Okay, yes. Let's look at the sentence and see what makes sense.
Let me read it. It starts with in allen Fällen also besetzt das finite Verb die zweite Stelle auf dem... Oh, that's the one preceding. This sentence begins with das gilt auch für die Inversion, also die Umkehrung der Abfolge.
So this is, I think it's the same case as die Inversion,
I agree.
meaning object of für. It's not one of our dative exclusive, meaning that it probably picks, but it should be accusative at any rate. Nominative is not allowed in a
That's out of the question.
prepositional phrase.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Für could not be exclusively dative, as we can just tell from looking at für die Inversion, because die is not the dative form. So as far as like levels expressed by letter and number, I have no idea. I'm clueless about those things. But let's work on the basic mechanics. Your vocabulary is good. Your pronunciation is excellent. Recognition, I'd say, is about 8 out of 10, maybe. Need to work on that. I suppose it'd be helpful if we were in the same place, but we got to make do with what we can, with what we have. Yeah, highest marks for pronunciation. Spelling is quite good. Your vocabulary, I would say maybe a 7 or so out of 10. But we gotta really rehearse that case grammar, the inflection.
Okay, and I can usually get those with some deliberation, but getting them quick is not easy for me. But like you just saw me figure out what cases and numbers these all were.
Okay.
But it took a while. Okay, yes, I will collect these sentences together.
Good.
Let's learn some Esperanto now.
Yep. I'm already one step in. Are you able to see?
Turo, tower. Is that correct?
That is correct. What's the origin of this one? Where's it taken from?
The English Tower, perhaps?
Could
Or
be.
maybe the Italian.
Probably close. I don't know what the Italian form is. It's pretty close in form to the French, but ultimately Latin. Turris.
Ĉu vi vidas la altan turon je la fino de tiu avenuo?
Ah, what's this? Yeah. Ĉu vi vidas la altan turon je la fino de tiu avenuo?
Ĉu vi vidas la altan turon je la fino de tiu avenuo?
Tiu avenuo. Ĉu vi vidas? Do you see the tall tower? Oh, is this a relative? At of on. Wow. Any thoughts on where that could come from? It might be slot. La fino. De tiu. That
I don't have any thoughts off the top of my head now tonight, but I will keep you posted if any occur to me.
like a winner.
Jen la vojo al la plej bela avenuo de nia urbo.
Jen la vojo al la plej bela avenuo de nia urbo. Yen, is that a name? No, here. Oh, is this the existential? Here is the way to. Yeah, here's the way to. La plej bela, the most, our city's most beautiful avenue. I think that's it. Yen. Yeah, I wonder if there's intended to be a connection there. Yen here is. Do you remember how to say there is?
I wish I could find my tabeloj de
La vojo hejmen estas longa. La vojo hejmen estas longa.
Oh, looks like a new noun form. Do you see it? La vojo hejmen estas longa. So there's just the two nouns, vojo and heim. Heimo, I guess, would be home, right? Here we have heyman.
Then why is it not heimo? Yeah.
I think it is an allative, direct in the direction of home. The way home.
Oh, wow.
Or it could be a special adverb or something, but maybe it's a new case.
It could be, yeah, I guess, like the Irish word awalia.
That tower, preskaŭ tuŝas. How about for tuŝas? And by the way, do you know this QWERTY-friendly spelling of Esperanto that uses X for the diacritic?
I don't know that, but that's nice.
Yeah, it's real handy. I forget what they do for the modified U. They might also put an X there. What do you think for the source of tushas, tushi? Tower?
Touches. I think the French touche.
Yes, I believe so as well. Almost touches the sky. It's a perfect match. La cielon.
Ni eniris la bestoĝardenon por vidi la strigojn.
Sky.
Say what? What did you say?
La cielon, the sky.
The sky, yeah.
Accusative mark.
Yep. Ni eniris, I think this is a compound. Preposition plus verb compound. We ingo. Oh, past, entered. La bestoĝardenon por vidi la strigojn. We entered the zoo to see. Okay, so that German zu that appears infixed, it might be like this por in order to. Although it's threatening to collapse, that's not for a purpose. We entered the zoo to see la strigojn, the owls. Can you hear the cats?
Yes.
Ili trovis la ĝustan enirejon, sed perdis poste la vojon.
Ili trovis la ĝustan enirejon. Just might be the right one. Sed perdis poste la vojon. Enirejo, I'm guessing means entrance. They found the right entrance. So my guess, the correct entrance. Sed perdis poste, but afterwards, lost their way.
Nepre ne eniru la bestoĝardenon.
Nepre. Wow. Ne eniru la bestoĝardenon. Interesting. Absolutely doesn't.
Vestor Giardeno is such a fun
Yeah,
word. The Beast Garden.
I like it as well. Absolutely do not. Okay, eniru, the imperative, right? Ending in u. Enter.
Yes, I think so.
Ilia hejmo troviĝas en bela urbo.
Hejmo. There we go. We have the base form of a noun, home. So their home troviĝas en bella urbo. And an unmarked object of a preposition. Troviĝas. What could that be? Their home. Oh, it's like is found. It is in. From trovi. I wonder if this is like a middle voice ending here or something. The j rather. Trovij is in a beautiful city. So this one, it would be a GX in the spelling. Famaturo troviĝas. Something like a famous tower is found. Do you know the German for this? To be located in a place?
Liegen.
That's one. They also have this more complex phrase, sich befinden.
Okay.
Befindet sich. It's a bit new-fashioned, I think. Not very old.
Ni ŝatus vojaĝi tien.
Ni ŝatus. What is us? It's not perfect. Sorry, it's not future. Ni, we, like, in some kind of tense, voyaĝi tien. Would like. It's subjunctive.
Ĉu ni rajtas eniri tiun turon?
What is a raiti? Ĉu ni rajtas eniri tiun turon? To ride? Raitas. Allowed. Do you think this is from English?
No, to write.
No, I don't think it's right. I think it's
Is
to
that
have.
what we're talking about?
I think it's from raiti, this verb. I think it might
Or
from
to have the right.
Yeah, that's my suspicion. Let's find out. Raiti. First use of Wiktionary here today.
Yeah, so the phrase that it had censored before is dative plural relative pronoun. It censored that.
Interesting.
I've made it uncensor it, but
Good.
it said it was sexually explicit.
News to me. Okay. Yeah, it says borrowed from English right. Oh, nice. I'm going to look up that ye as well, that preposition. Doesn't have an all-purpose preposition. Huh. Etymology missing. Okay. Are we allowed
Not all purpose.
to enter?
I'm sure there are purposes it could not be used for.
Perhaps.
Ilia hejmo troviĝas en bela loko.
Ja hejmo troviĝas en bela loko. Their home is in. An interesting fact about the word located. I cannot find an English sentence that would lose any meaning if you took out the word located. I think you can always.
What do you mean?
I think you can. Whenever you see the word located, you can always delete it without any loss of meaning.
That's not necessarily true.
Well, please.
I located the restaurant.
That's true. Okay, as a verb. As a participle, that's good. Let me amend my statement. The participle located is never needed. Yeah, that's
Okay.
good point. So there we see the difference between a true verb and a verbal adjective or something. Their home is in a beautiful place. Pretty quick disproving there. Good work.
Ĉu vi ofte venas ĉi tien?
Dien. Ĉu vi ofte? Do you often come here? Good pickup line.
Mi loĝas en avenuo de floroj.
Live on Flowers Avenue. Frenchman.
La granda stacidomo troviĝas apud la rivero.
Stazidomo. What could this be? Like a... Oh, I bet it's a station house or something. Stazidomo. Troviĝas apud. Pure Latin. La rivero. So this apud, you familiar with it?
Stacidomo.
Stazi. It's a dental affricate.
Kind of the root of station, and then domo might be like building.
House.
House.
As far as Latin. This large station is next to the river. So apud means by, at, next to, with in Latin, and its Greek cognate is apo. The Germanic, it would have been aba, which is where we get off, and German up, and so on.
Sure.
Kien vi iris? Mi iris tien.
Kien is where, vi iris, where did you go? Mi iris tien, I went there. So this, oh, here's a good mnemonic for it. If you can remember that it's kien and tien for destination in Esperanto, connect that with German hin for destination. Oh, also, the end of the word destination ends in n. Connect that with hin, I suppose, when in doubt. And from where is her. I suppose I can capitalize the H too. Absolutely. Nepre. That's an interesting one too. What is the pre, do you suppose?
When it will appear, I will get.
Ah, Russian.
Nepre.
Непременно. Непременно. Ненно, it would be. Непременно. Without fail, certainly. Непременно. Ненно. And do not enter the zoo eniru. La besto giardino. Nepre ne. Okay, absolutely not enter the besto giardino. Where there's a will.
What part means absolutely?
Nepre.
Okay.
It's from Russian.
Estas. Estas.
Voyo. Nepre ne.
Ne.
Eniru. La. Besto giardenon. Okay. Good night, team. Good work.
Good night.
And we'll see you next time. 안녕히 계세요.